Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Howdy everybody, and welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host Andy Nolch, and these are closed-door secret briefings about vital information about Scientology and the world, information that you need to know. And today's briefing is part 7 of my briefing series on OT8, the highest level in Scientology, the highest level that is secret. This is part 7. And this is also podcast number 111, which is special because it's 111, and that number has metaphysical significance. I see it in my life all the time. And by coincidence, I'm planning on finishing this briefing and the whole podcast. Well, I wanted to on this one because it was 111. I thought this would be perfect, but I've got things I want to talk to you about in this, and I might have to go to part 8. So I'm probably going to have to go to part 8. So my lecture series my briefing series on OT8 is going to have 8 parts in it, which I think it's kind of cool because it's fitting. So it's been a while since I've done one because I've been traveling around and stuff, and let's get back into it, and I'm going to continue talking about the ideas in OT8. There's just so much to say about it. It's so deep. If you want to know what OT8 is, I talk about it in the other parts, so you should probably start with part 1 and listen to all of them, because I've done so much study in order to talk about this subject. It requires so much research, and I'm pretty much ready to end this, but I'll have to go into another part next week, but I'll get it done. Then that's it for the podcast. So anyway, now Hubbard seems to be a Lucifer fan when you read his OT8 student briefing document, and that's pretty normal because there's many famous people who are Lucifer fans, and they view it as just enlightenment and knowledge and science and that sort of stuff. It's not sort of like this Christian idea of this evil devil and stuff like that. People who are Lucifer fans don't believe in that Christian theory that there's a devil that's running around causing problems and that has big horns or something like that. They kind of view the Christian worldview as being silly. And I kind of agree with them, but then I also disagree because I believe that, well, anyway, I'm going to get onto that in the next part, what the things that I disagree with. Anyway, sorry, that's just deep. It's just such a deep thing, but like, it all depends on what you say. It's not like I think there's a guy running around with horns saying I'm the devil, but if you believe in aliens, for example, then you'll believe that there's aliens that aren't for your self-interest, so then technically they become like a devil to you, right? So let's say there's an aliens that want to invade Earth, right? Let's say there is, right? Which it seems absolutely the situation. That's a secret I should let you know. I'll probably mention it in other videos, but Earth is just like Ukraine and just like America, where there are people that are interested in having that piece of territory, and just like they're interested in having Australia as a piece of territory. There's multiple groups out there that want it. So Earth is like that. There are aliens out there, and they're interested in Earth, and they want it. And just like countries on Earth fight and that sort of stuff, aliens fight. It's the same thing. So anyway, so if we've got, you might think that the idea of the devil is ridiculous, but if there is an alien group out there that's interested in Earth, and they want to kill you and take this territory, they're like your devil. Do you see what I mean? So you go, yes, it's coming from the devil, but it could just be some foreign military thing. But it's like anything bad you can label as being the devil or evil. And so that's why it's kind of like a theory that can't be wrong, really. This whole good versus evil thing. It's like one side, Ukraine would say, we're good and we're versing Russia, which is evil. And Russia would say, we're good and we're versing Ukraine, which is evil. So their whole evils and goods are switched and shit. Like it's just so stupid. And I think that, but that's why it's like Christians can have this theory of the good versus evil and the devil versus God or whatever, or God, devil versus Jesus. And they can look around and they can find evidence to fit that theory anywhere. But is it true or not? That's the big question. And personally, I don't really, like, I'm sure there are, like Hubbard says, well, he says that this universe is getting invaded by these evil, he mocks Christianity, and he doesn't believe in this whole good versus evil thing, yet he is forwarding that same idea in his OT8. He's saying that there are these evil beings outside of this universe, basically, and they're trying to infiltrate here and take it over and control us. And so we're good and we're versing them. So that's good versus evil. That's the Christian idea. So he mocks Christianity, at the same time he then is believing in a theory that's pretty much similar. Because what is the devil? That's a bad God. And then you've got God, the good God. Good God versus bad God. Good versus evil. God versus the devil. Hubbard's got the same thing. He talks about the Galactic Confederacy in his briefing, trying to save us, and then versus these beings that are infiltrating our universe. So they're evil because they're doing bad things. So it's good versus evil. So he's mocking Christianity, saying it's ridiculous, and because he's got throughout his career, he had other things. There's more stuff he said about Christianity, and you get an idea of what he thinks. And it's just funny because then this is where he's so interesting and he's so crazy, because then he releases his OT8, and it's like, what the hell? You're spreading the Christian idea as well, the good versus evil. That's what you believe in that, and you don't even know it. Like, it's just. But then he'll probably argue the fine points of things, like, I don't believe in a devil with horns or something, or like a silly thing. He's just saying there's just another foreign group full of military. So if there's any foreign military, they can just get labeled as a devil and evil, because they're going to be forwarding the agenda of their group, and it's not going to be that good for your group because they want your territory, you know. So anyway, this is all just crazy spiritual talk. It's interesting though, but do I believe in Hubbard's OT8 theory? You know, and I don't fully. I think it's really interesting. I think there's so much evidence for it. I think it's totally worth talking about, doing this lecture series on, because I do look at it. It does appear that there's a forces of enlightenment working here on Earth to improve the place. There's definitely evidence for that. I believe that, actually. And the question is there a force of evil working to, like evil gods working to take this place over and control us all? And there's evidence for that as well. But then the reason why I'm not fully buying it is because this gets so deep and tricky, is that stuff that the force of evil does sort of changes us and also improves us in a certain way. Like, it's like yin versus yang. Like, is there really a good versus evil? If you look into yin and yang, it's a really deep philosophy, and it changes your whole idea of like, whoa, is there even good and evil? Like, they're working together. Like, good does a bunch of stuff, and then that helps evil somehow. Like, if you're looking at, seriously, you're looking at yin and yang, you got to read the Tao Te Ching or whatever. that book, it's a short book. It's only like 6,000 words, but you got to think about it and you got to listen to it, and you can see it, you hear it on YouTube. But its ideas are really interesting. It's like crazy philosophical conundrums. But anyway, then the evil pushes and pushes, and then that opens up the good. So like, you look at the evil of COVID, it push, but then it creates all this good and it unlocks all these people's minds. And then you have all these people free and they do all this good stuff, and then that makes people lazy, and then next minute evil can come in and enslave everyone, and then then the enslaving everyone could make all these rebels bounce out and go stuff the system, and then they start pushing for freedom. And it's like, it's constantly like spinning and flipping with each other all the time. It's yin and yang. It's crazy. So is there evil? You know, is the force, some force trying to invade Earth or take it over, or this physical universe we see, or just this universe we see? Are they really evil, or are they really trying to take it over? Or I don't know. It's pretty deep down the rabbit hole, this topic. But do I believe in Hubbard's theory? I don't know. I'll have to keep on thinking about it, but it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting. Well, like I said, I mean, there are always groups trying to invade other groups and other universes, so that makes total sense. But do I really think it's actually happening? I don't know. I've got to think about that one for longer. I'm probably a bit tired at the moment, so it's just such a deep thing. But maybe I'll have an answer next week, as if I think Hubbard's right or wrong about his. It's such a typical Hubbard thing where it's and Hubbard is very yin and yang, because he's right and wrong at the same time, and it's just, how can something, it's just a mixture of both, and it's very funny. It's all just like, what the hell. So I think this theory that he's got, the conspiracy of all conspiracies, which is his OT8 theory, it's his explanation of evil, basically. It's just interesting, and it's probably right and wrong at the same time, basically. Anyway, so many famous people are Lucifer fans, like Led Zeppelin, because they're into like magic and stuff, and they're Crowley fans like Hubbard. So it's really not that extreme. Like, even though it's quite common, so don't just be totally freaked out about that. But it is really interesting stuff if you try and look into the Crowley stuff. It's just like, what the hell? You got to be looking into Freemasonry and stuff. And anyway, the guy Jimmy Page out of Led Zeppelin, he did a soundtrack for like an indie film in like 1970 or something. And the indie film was called Lucifer Rising. And it's like an artsy 30-minute film or something. You can find it on YouTube. But see, I got to keep up to date with his briefings so that I'm sharp onto all the things. But I've had such a long break. But in this little movie thing, at the end of it, they're doing it. You see, it's a lot of Egyptian stuff, and that's why a lot of this magic stuff is into the Egyptians, because they get a lot of, because they're into the Egyptian magic and that deep data, ancient spiritual stuff. But in the end, you see, it's called Lucifer Rising, thingo. But in the end, you see UFOs come. And it's like someone summoning UFOs or something in the video, and you see UFOs come in. So that would be, I guess, the Galactic Confederacy. But Hubbard would watch stuff like that, and Jimmy Page would watch stuff like that, and they would see the UFOs come, and so to them, Lucifer Rising is UFOs coming. Do you see what I mean? So Hubbard would be able to watch that music clip and make sense of it, and go, oh, yeah. So, because Hubbard in his briefing says that Lucifer is another word for the Galactic Confederation of Light, and that will come to Earth and set us free or something like that. So anyway, I think that's just an interesting point, because you could read the briefing and say, what a load of crap, saying Lucifer is the Galactic Confederacy. But then you see this movie with Jimmy Page in it, and they're depicting Lucifer coming as being the coming of UFOs. So Lucifer's like an alien. And you could say it's like the Galactic Confederacy. Hubbard would say it's like the Galactic Confederacy, the forces of light, because Lucifer, the actual word Lucifer, means light. And Hubbard also, in the briefing, I think, said that Lucifer isn't even really a person. It's like a force of light, another name for the Galactic Confederacy. Because I think that the Christians have this silly idea of Lucifer as like this horned evil alien or something like that. Anyway, so I just thought I'd mention that, but there's just, yeah, it's very deep stuff, and thanks to the internet and the mass awakening we've got, more and more people are becoming aware of these off-world things and finding out about stuff. But in 1970, the average Joe, I imagine, would watch that Lucifer Rising thing and just be like, what the hell, and not be able to make any sense of it. It'll just all go over their head. So this is something else I realized the other day, is that, because it seems that Jesus was like, he wasn't as spiritual as we think, and he was like a political leader that was trying to take over Israel from the Romans. And well, Judaism, Judah, I guess that area would have been called back then, or something like that, or whatever. And so he was just this hardcore nationalistic patriot, and he was more trying to be a king. And it's quite possible that he was trying to be not just a king of Israel, but king of the world, the way Jesus was operating, like the things he was saying. And so, and he was, Jesus was Jewish, and his apostles and lots of stuff were Jewish. So this could possibly have been some sort of setting up of Zionism, which is, no, sorry, I might be using the wrong word by saying Zionism. I made a post about that. Yeah, I shouldn't have used the word. People who are awake would know what I mean, but I shouldn't have used that word Zionism in the post. Basically, the Jew World Order, because you've heard of the New World Order. Well, there's the conspiracy theory of the Jew World Order, that's Jewish people taking over the world, like the protocols of Zion and stuff like that. Christianity could have been that, like Jesus being the king of the world and having his 12 disciples that maybe managing certain areas, or some sort of Jesus was wanting to take over the world, basically, or something like that. God's chosen people and stuff like that. So that's why I'm not much of a fan of Christianity, because I'm concerned that Jesus could have been this hardcore nationalistic patriot that was trying to achieve Zionism and the taking over of Earth by the Jews, or something like that. So, I mean, there's a thing just stuffed up. There's a part of the Bible which Christians love to ignore, and there was a Greek lady was asking for help from Jesus, and Jesus was like, why the hell should I help you? You're a Greek. You're like a dog. Why should it, like, honestly, it's brutally racist. It's just like direct. It's just like boom. Like, why should I help you? I'm not here for you. and stuff like that. And that shows that he was very nationalistic, and this is why he wanted to overthrow the Romans and become king of Israel. And it showed that he was racist, and because Christians have this idea, and I don't know if it was true, that Jesus came for all of humanity and all of earth and all this stuff, and it's like, I don't know. I think he was just like this spiritual dude, but also very political, and was wanting to be king of Israel. And I don't know if he had all of humanity in mind. I mean, he said the most disgraceful thing. Look for the quote about what Jesus says about the Greeks. And it's also really disturbing because the Greeks at the time, they had a lot of top scientists, a lot of great philosophy and inventions. They were like right up there. They weren't dogs and scum of the earth. Like, they weren't a crap race. They were like they were the race. Like, they were like the best, you know, the Greeks and then the Romans. So it just sort of is like, it wasn't like an Aboriginal Australian went up to Jesus and asked him for help. You know what I mean? This was a Greek woman that was going up and asking for help. So, you know, and I'm not even going to talk any longer and try and pretend. I'm just going to talk to you pure facts, because in a deep video like that, like this, I'm willing to offend people and all this sort of stuff, because it's unlikely an Aboriginal would ever watch this. They don't have the IQ to watch this. And let's not deal in fantasy land, okay? Let's deal in actual fiction. I mean, I watched the other day a video with this guy playing piano, and it was like this nice song and stuff, and then it paused, and then they had a break and they played Aboriginal music, right? And it's just like this. And then it went back to the guy playing the beautiful piano music and all that sort of stuff. And the contrast was so strong. It was just like, what the hell? And so you realize that some races have certain talent and other races just don't. And the best they can come up with is just clicking a stick together and going, ah. And I'm not joking. Like, this is real. So, you know, let's just not live in fiction land, okay? There's clearly a major difference between them. And until you look at that and the difference in genetic and DNA, you're not going to be able to come to the truth with anything, because you're in some crazy state of confusion on everything. Deal in reality. Anyway, so I'm willing to say that rude statement. But it's not like Jesus came across an Aboriginal Australian and said, I don't want to waste my time on you, you know, you scum, or whatever. Jesus came across a Greek and then said that offensive comment. So that makes me go, wow, because the thing is that I know you don't hear much about it, but Jews have a history of being very nationalistic, and they've got very hardcore patriotic rules in their nation, and they're very they cling together, like they hire their own kind to work on TV shows, and I think they do it subconsciously. I don't even think it's consciously. They're not even aware of it, but they're actually quite patriotic, and that's what's interesting, seeing this statement in the Bible coming from Jesus, because it indicates that he had that element of hardcore patriotism. And when you read the Bible, and there's lots of stuff like God's on our side and blah blah blah, and we're going to go and kill these people, and because it's all these ancient stories and stuff, it's very nationalistic. It's very like, whoa, you know, like, I mean, lefties got upset with stuff that Trump said nowadays, but man, imagine if Trump was going around saying the stuff that's in the Old Testament and said statements like, in reference to the Mexicans, like a statement like what Jesus said about the Greeks, like, that would just be like, whoa, you know? Anyway, so Christians have this false idea that Jesus came for the savior of all mankind and for them and all this stuff. And it's like, no, the whole thing has all to do with Jewishness. The Old Testament, they talk about, it's just all that part of the world, their religion and their history. And where's your European religion, or if you're from like the Philippines or something like that, you have your own native history and religion of that area that you probably should be interested in, yet you've somehow adopted this whole Jewish story and stuff and Jesus and all that stuff, and you got obsessed with it. But it's just irrelevant. Anyway, so it's all very interesting, but I'm just giving you some ideas to help you understand Christianity, because in this OT8, Hubbard talks about Christianity. Christianity was an anti-Roman Empire religion. It was like a nationalistic religion, and Jesus is our savior to set us Jews free and to get rid of the Roman Empire. And at the time, the Roman Empire was really big and spreading, and possibly, well, let's just talk about aliens because we know they exist. But there's a part of the Bible where it mentions how God noticed, and God, wink, wink, alien, noticed that humanity was uniting and building like the Tower of Babel or something like that. And God said, nah, we're going to stop that because God's in the Bible's evil. The Old Testament. It's just read it. Just read it. And that's why I find it so funny with Christians, because they're under such mind control, and they've done it to themselves. Like they so want it to be true that they read the Bible and the Old Testament in particular, and they're not shocked at the things that God has done and the bad things that God has done in the Old Testament. It's like they're okay with it, and it's like, whoa, did you read the same book as me? Like, that character of God in the Old Testament is a complete disgrace. Like, it's clearly some sort of alien that's like obsessed with controlling humanity and suppressing them, and it's probably just some alien evil sociopathic alien military commander that was doing a mission here on Earth for like a few hundred years or something like that, and came across the primitive natives, and then they wrote up stories about it, and then they started worshipping this guy, and it's just like, this is just some messed up alien commander. Like, this just like, it's just crazy. Anyway, and by the way, remote viewers have looked into all this stuff, and seriously, some of these stories like about Zeus and stuff like that, and gods and stuff like that, they just didn't have the word alien. They used different words. They're like sky people or God or Zeus or whatever. They just didn't use the word alien, but it's like they've looked into it, the remote viewers, and it comes back as just being aliens. You know, it's just a normal thing. It's just that the government's kept it secret from us, so it seems so strange for me to talk about aliens. And people are like, oh my God, aliens, they have this big obsession with aliens, and oh, it's so silly and all this stuff. And it's just like, alien is just the same as us talking about Australians or Peruvians or Indians or Maltesians or whatever. It's just like they're just different people from different areas, just like there's different aliens from different planets. It's normal. It's totally normal. So by bringing in Christianity, right, because it's like the Tower of Babel, where it was the alien god wanted man to not unite and keep them separated for whatever reason, because it's probably forwarding his own agenda and all that stuff, the agenda of his people or whatever. Christianity could have been a similar thing, where they saw the Roman Empire expanding and maybe the Greek Empire getting too big, and they didn't like, the aliens didn't like what was going on, so they brought in Christianity, like a hardcore nationalistic religion that would resist Roman occupation. And then hopefully rot away and bring down the whole Roman Empire, like bringing down the Tower of Babel, and then we're not united and we're split up again. And that's what happened, and that's possibly what, brought about the Dark Ages and all that stuff. So it could have been an effective alien military operation to bring Christianity to Earth. And Jesus could have been an alien. Or he could have been a human, but in heavy alien contact, which Muhammad was. And 100%, by the way. 100%. You can get answers to these things by remote viewing. And so it's probably very similar. And speaking of the remote viewing, the Muhammad stuff, it came back that the alien was bad, just to let you know. Because I'm suspicious that the aliens who were running the Muhammad stuff were the same aliens who ran Christianity and Judaism. And maybe they wanted to, like they were doing certain agendas and stuff with the humans and wanting to change us and all this sort of stuff. It's all... Anyway, so... So I'm just giving you all the reason, because Hubbard doesn't fully explain. He expects the people are smart enough to work out themselves the problems with Christianity. But most Christians, like Scientologists, don't fully investigate the history of their own religion and don't even find out, they never fully understand it, So there's numerous statements that L. Ron Hubbard said, like in lectures and stuff, about Christianity being an implant. And he says that the real believers in Christianity are psychotic. I agree with that personally. I think that there's something deep and sick wrong with a person to fully adopt their beliefs like that. I don't mind cultural and casual Christians, which I'm used to be. And you could say still am, I guess. But it's just because it's sort of like it's a real casual version. But I mean actual believing ones, they're like obsessed with it. It's totally taken over their mind. They want to worship the Lord and Jesus, and it's crazy. They're gone. Anyway, and the fact that there's these things that Hubbard has said about this backs up that the OT8 document is real, because when you know these other things that Hubbard said about Christianity and you read OT8 document, it makes sense. And when you listen to the stuff that L. Ron Hubbard's son called Nibs, the stuff he said, then you read the OT8 and you're like, yeah, this backs it all up. Like it's a real document. Anyway, Christianity apparently has some feminism in it. That's all I'm going to say about that. I can't elaborate, but there's some feminist thing to Christianity. Christianity did a lot of assaulting on science, and science is what sets us free and what improves our life. Science is essential. It's knowledge, it's information. It's why I'm doing these briefings. It's just knowledge, science. And, whether you work out that water boils at a certain temperature or the science of how to build a rocket, it's all about advancing us and improving our lives. And it sets us free from, being slaves all the time, because if it weren't for science, then we would have to wake up and have to run and catch an animal, and we'll just be slaves all the time. But now that we've got all this advanced stuff, we can sit back and do stuff like listen to this, this briefing and stuff like that, and it makes our lives more colourful and fun, and it sets us free. Like we're not having to do all this hard work all the time and stuff. So science is really, really important, and Christianity was attacking science. It had this big problem with science, and they're not even, if you talk to believing Christians, the fundamentalists, they think pride and knowledge is bad and it's just all about God and you're supposed to be obsessed with God. See, if you were an alien and you wanted to suppress us humans, bringing this religion along and getting us obsessed with it, that'll stop us from being interested in science and other things, right? And then we will be good little slaves and we won't be a problem or whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe they looked at us as the primitive man and they didn't want primitive man to advance, so they bring in these ideas so that primitive man doesn't advance. It's like America looking at Mexico or something like that and saying, well, we don't want them to be a threat one day, okay? So we're going to go in there and we're going to put in some retarded ideas and make them go retarded so they don't get advanced and their military doesn't beat us one day. Do you see what I mean? So this all could be alien operations that we're looking at. There was a serpent religion, apparently. I don't know what it was. There was a serpent religion, right? And this where is it? This Christianity banned it and Judaism banned it because it had like science data in it and stuff. So this serpent religion got banned, and that's why the serpent is also associated with science and knowledge and stuff like that, and like a tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden and stuff like that. And it could have come from an alien that looks like a serpent because the reptilian aliens look like walking snakes, basically, like walking lizards or something. Walking human-looking lizards or something. Yeah. So yeah, we're seeing here an assault on science data, basically. And these religions like Christianity and Judaism just don't like science or something, so it sends us backwards. It's suppressing us. Hubbard put triangles in the Scientology logo, the S and the triangles, and it's like the triangles have been broken apart. And I'm trying to think. I think the triangles is the two triangles makes the Star of Solomon or whatever, Solomon's symbol, which is the seal of Israel. The two triangles, I think. Yeah, one triangle here, then you overlap it with another triangle, and then you have the flag of Israel, the Israel symbol. And so Hubbard's S, it's like Scientology has broken apart the symbol, and you got two triangles, one here and one here, and they're not in the same shape. They're not making the Star of David. You see what I mean? They've been broken apart by the S. And the S also implies Satan. It also implies probably serpent, like serpent religion, like science, or S, and S obviously for science, for Scientology. And it's breaking that apart. And it's almost like he's implying that it's breaking apart the suppression of Judaism on the world. And then by showing the Christian cross, the Scientology symbol, which is the Christian cross with a cross through it. So it's a crossed out cross. If you look at the Scientology cross, it's a Christian thing, but then it's got a cross through it, like you're banning smoking, cigarette smoking, like think of red lines, cross. No, not allowed. You can't walk your dog in this park. That crossed out thing. But then you have the Christian symbol. So, I mean, the Scientology Church doesn't admit the secret meaning of it, but that seems what it is. So it's crossing out Christianity. So you've got the Scientology cross, which is really crossing out Christianity. And it's also the same thing that they use in Rosicrucianism. So that indicates how Hubbard was a student of Rosicrucianism, which he was. So it's a crossed out cross, so it's breaking apart, it's crossing out Christianity, and then by breaking apart the Star of David, it's breaking apart Judaism with the S. So it's kind of like implying what Scientology's effect is on humanity, because I think that Christianity and Judaism have the same God. and they're just an offshoot of each other. They're all the same religion. It's just that one guy came along and said that people who are not Jewish can also become Christians, or I don't even know if Jesus said that, but the idea got in that people who are not Jewish can become Jewish, basically, and then you're a Christian. So they're basically the same religion, Judaism and Christianity, and Hubbard's symbols are sort of breaking that apart. It's like he's trying to break apart an alien humanity control operation. And he made the Scientology S look like a snake. If you look at the Scientology S, it looks like a snake. It's like he's implying it's like the Apple logo, where like the Apple computers, and you see the bite in the apple because it's representing the apple from the Garden of Eden. Because Steve Jobs was into the same top spiritual data that Hubbard was into. So Hubbard made the S on Scientology look like a bit like a snake. So he's implying that it's like the snake in the Garden of Eden, setting humanity free with knowledge and information. And this is why it's so funny, because you read the Bible and you're just like, I can't believe Christians. You read the Bible and you're like, okay, so there's Adam and Eve in the garden and they ate from the tree of knowledge or whatever. What's wrong with that? God comes in, how dare you have knowledge? Like, it's just like, what's wrong with it from him eating from the apple in the garden? Like, that's a good thing. Like, he's getting knowledge, and it's like God's like, no, you're going to be dumb, you're going to do exactly what I say, you're going to control me, you're going to worship me, you're not going to have any other gods before me, I'm your tyrant, I'm your Dan Andrews, I'm going to control you, I'm your Hillary Clinton. And it's just so Hillary Clinton, like, but it's just obvious when you read it, and it's just like, maybe it's not obvious if you're not that bright, and if you've been brainwashed before you read the Bible into thinking that it's really good, but you'd just be so confused by everything. I mean, I could read the scene with the apple in the garden and stuff, and I could make sense of it, because I was like, yeah, that was like an alien dude, and he was growing humans and stuff like that, and like he was wanting to control them and didn't want them knowing this information, and like he's a bad guy, and because clearly just before that he was just like slaughtering people wholesale and just a tyrant and crazy. And so like it makes sense that he wouldn't want them having knowledge. But I just think a Christian would be so many moments where their mind will just be confused, but I don't think they get too confused because they don't think too deeply, because you can't be logical and be a Christian. It's not possible. You got to be a little bit like unable to understand. So the whole thing, you're reading it all in a blur, and then you're like, oh, I love Christianity, oh, it's so good, and because the whole of the Bible is a blur to you. You're not making any sense of it at all. You're in some fantasy land while you're reading it. It's just total, it's like just poor comprehension completely. Anyway. And also, Hubbard put S's into his signature for his name. He has this really fancy signature. It's really impressive, actually. It looks like something out of like Captain Cook movie or something. It's like L. Ron Hubbard, and it's really fancy. But there are moments where it looks like S's, the shape, because it's not S's, it's snakes. You see what I mean? Like snakes. And in his in his signature, he's not depicting the letter S in his name, but he's just L. Ron Hubbard, but because there's no S in the name L. Ron Hubbard. But the way he's done it's like he's popped S's in there. And I noticed that because I was like, why the hell does it appear that there's S's, but there's no S letter in his signature? And then it makes you wonder, because he put the S looking like a snake. It's like he's putting in snake. He's putting a snake into his signature. And then somebody who was that Hubbard learnt from, called this Commander Thompson guy, he put S's into his signature, and he was known for doing it, and he obviously must have told people about it. But that Commander Thompson guy put S's in his signature, and I bet you that Hubbard got the idea to put S's in his signature from the Commander Thompson guy. And the S's represent the same thing. Satan, Scientology, snake, all the same thing. Science, but Scientology is science, the same thing. It's just made a religion out of science. Now we're all, according to OT8, we're all stuck in our bodies, right? Thus we must have varying degrees of evil, because because we're stuck in our bodies, we've got the implant, right? And so there's varying degrees of evil, because some people are really forwarding the communist agenda, the controller's agenda, right? But other people are stuck in their body like me, and I'm not forwarding a communist agenda. So we've all got the implant, we've all been fucked up to a certain extent, but other people have really got the implant more, and they're actually under mind control by the beings in another dimension that are taking over. And so that's just an interesting thing to factor in, that we've all been messed up by this OT8 implant, which I don't even really believe. But yeah, see, sorry, now that we're talking about this is why I don't really believe in Hubbard's OT8 theory, because I don't believe that the implant is causing the mind control. I think he's looking at the data and he's not explaining it correctly. So that's where it's like he's right, but he's kind of wrong at the same time. It's not a proper representation. And if I was going to come up with a religion and then release the conspiracy of all conspiracies, I would fix up Hubbard's theory, and I think I would come to something that's closer towards the truth. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, you read that OT8 thing and he mentions how there's this implant and we've all got to audit it, but you got to factor in we all have, according to the theory, we've all been messed up by this implant, but some people obviously much more than others, because they're actually under mind control. And we have to stop these people getting the mind control element of the implant, but everyone has the body stuck in the body element. So I'll say one more thing. The Christian Crowley didn't believe in the devil. He believed in anti-Christian stuff, and Hubbard probably was the same because he was a big fan of Crowley. They believed in the Antichrist and they were against Christianity, but they didn't necessarily believe in the devil, and they thought that theory was silly and ridiculous and stuff. And just primitive and just ridiculous. So that's why if somebody said, Crowley, are you the most wickedest man, or are you the devil or something, he'd probably say yes and laugh, because he just thinks it's completely stupid, the whole theory. But he does believe in anti-Christian, because that just means anti that religion that he doesn't like. And the Antichrist is anti-against that whole system. So I'm sure Hubbard would laugh at the devil, but then at the same time, he would claim that he's the Antichrist. So technically he is the devil. But I think this is that whole silly idea of the horned god of the devil. So it's all definitions of words, and it's all silly. So yeah, that's it for this briefing. I'm going to have to go into another one. I've still got a lot of points to go. But yeah, I hope you like that, and it's interesting, deep ideas. Yeah, I'll finish it definitely next one. I've got to finish it for sure. I'll skip over the points or delete some points or whatever, because this is going to go forever. But yeah, that's it. I've been your host, Andy Nolch. You've been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast, this OT8 briefing part 7. Stay tuned. The next one's going to come soon, and I won't be as tired, and I will hopefully we'll go out with a big bang with the last Indie Scientology podcast episode. See you later.